All right, marketologists, we have another marketing strategy session, and I have my man LJ Haywood on the call. He is with Build It Business Podcast.
Build It Boot Camp. Build It Boot Camp.
Build It Boot Camp. And how did I mess up boot camp? How did I mess that up?
It's the military thing. It's the military thing. Well, we were talking about business and using what it is today's topic. We were just talking about that. So I understand why you mixed it up. Is how to use a podcast to build your business.
Yeah. And I business in the boot camp, because I knew it was Build It Boot Camp.
I'm happy you made that mistake though. I'm happy you made that mistake because that's what I want. I want people to associate the podcast with business.
Yeah. And you're doing it big on the podcast. I mean,
Thanks, man.
From your podcast and your process of how you're building your business around podcasting actually as a tool to grow your business. I mean, I've seen you doing it.
Multiple businesses now. I started building. Yeah. The things that I started with the podcast for, and we'll talk about that, the reason why I started it and the purpose behind it and what I'm able to do now that I've started it. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Wow. Well, I'm ready to get into it. So, first of all, we got to give shout outs to the Air Force. Air Force rules.
That's right. Well, so my fiance and I, we're both in the military. She's in the Navy and she's actually deployed right now currently. Matter of fact, just yesterday, she shipped me a text. It was yesterday, the day before yesterday. Mm-hmm. And she was in the UK and just told me that, I'm at a hotel now. So if you hear like the lady, hopefully they just keep passing through. She it's going to be radio silence for next month. And then she'll be back in September. It's June now. My birthday is at the end of this month on the 22nd. And then in September is when she'll be back home, around September.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Hey, and my birthday's on the 23rd.
Really? June 23rd?
Yeah.
Wow, what a coincidence. Right there on the cusp also, huh?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I'm going to be officially an old man in a few days. So
okay. Hey, man, listen, man, it's all good. I think that I look at age differently though, because like I think people, when I was 18, I was like, I want to be better off when I'm 28 than I was when I was 18, and so on and so forth. So I think that progression has been steady Eddie. And I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody, and what he said was, how do you feel like you've changed since you were a child, like in a good way or a bad way? Mm-hmm. And the way I look at it is, if I'm talking to my younger self, I have conversations with my younger self. Like I say, this is who you thought you was going to be, and this is where you're at. And I'm actually further ahead than what I thought I was going to be at when I was a kid.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And I've noticed in my journey, your perspective of what you want and who you want to be changes, because a lot of things when you're younger, you thought you wanted, because you didn't know everything came with what you wanted.
Because you're an adolescent. You're an adolescent.
Yeah.
I made the analogy to, and if anybody has ever read this book, they wouldn't understand it, The Great Gatsby. And then when I read that book, the protagonist or antagonist, depending on how you look at the book, right? Because they're very ambiguous. He had this perception of what a man should be at the age of 18, and he strived to do that. So he had all the women and the booze and the partying and the money, but the book was really about how he never really grew up. Right. Yeah. He became this caricature of what he thought a man should be when he was 18. And I found a lot of that is true in society. A lot of men, they have this persona of what they think we should be when we're younger, and they never get past that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know we have these millionaires and billionaires, and we're like, we want to be this. And in order to be this, you have to be, self-serving and aggressive and everything that television or social media tells you should be. But then when you realize it might not be who you are, and that doesn't make you successful. It's amazing how many millionaires you find that feel that they're not successful and they're not happy with their life, but it's because they're living up to what everyone else says they should be. And this is the funny thing. I'm gonna pose this question to you. I love talking about this when I'm just around my boys why do rich people and successful people strive so hard to impress broke folk? Because if you notice the things that they do, the toys that they buy, they always show it off to people that can't afford it. They always do things. They're the ones behind the VIP popping bottles for a bunch of people that can't afford bottles, and going broke popping bottles for people that don't even know what a good champagne is.
Well, that's how. So, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, same thing with the cars. You buying cars with high maintenance and this, that, and the third to impress people that have never even ridden in a car of that stature, a hyper sport car. And you're paying all this money for maintenance, all this money for the car, just so you can ride down the street and somebody that's walking and catching the bus can say, "Ooh, he's riding in a such and such."
Right. I think that's a really good question, and I appreciate you asking that, Jeff, because what it comes down to is you mentioned the word rich, and people that are rich, that's fine, but wealth, like building wealth, like you have a rich mindset, a wealthy mindset is what I want, though. Like being rich is not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in building generational wealth and generational legacies. And so the people that are in that with that flashiness, it really comes down to they may be financially well off, but they have a broke mindset, because like it's like, dude, why do you have to impress other people? You know, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the reason why if you look at the US, a lot of people that were that gained their riches, the second generation typically squanders it. They squander it because they didn't earn it. They didn't go through the process. There's a process to get to wealth, and there's a process that you have to go through. There's a toughness, like tough times build tough people, right? And if you have no tough times, then you don't have that wherewithal to maintain when this person. It's like a, like I say, if two twin brothers had a pail, one has a sifter and one has a bucket that's whole, and they go and they come back. By the time they get back to you, one's gonna have a bucket full of water, the other one's gonna be empty when they go out to the ocean. Right. And so a lot of people have holes in their bucket. And so whether or not it's overspending on eating out, or it's overspending on, like you said, on toys, things like that. It could be just, whatever, you name it, right? Name your poison. Those are the holes in their bucket. And so sometimes when you're looking at what you just mentioned, is a lot of, I see a lot of that in LA when I grew up in Los Angeles, but I didn't see a lot of happiness, just being flashy and being happy and being content and being at ease. There's a lot of value in that, and a lot of people don't understand that. That's why I keep saying I'm not easily influenced by the thoughts and opinions of outside people that don't have anything to do with what I represent. Matter of fact, it's so funny you mentioned that. I've been wearing the same shoes to the point where like I gotta get rid of these, because like people and what's funny, right? People that don't understand wealth. There was somebody saying like, there's this guy, I guess his name was like, this guy like, but he doesn't really get dressed up. He has a Tesla. He makes all this money. He doesn't get dressed up. Like, why is he doesn't care about himself? And I said, no, that's not the case. He doesn't care about your opinion of him.
Yeah.
And so he's wealthy. He has a mindset where he doesn't have to get all dressed up to impress you, right? He has a Tesla. Like, why would he go like to the store with like slacks on, like, you know what I'm saying? Like whatever, right? I'm like, because that's not what he's in the game for. He's thinking long term. So when it's funny how poor people try to tell rich people how to act, and the ones that fall for that are the ones you're talking about.
And exactly. And a lot of people that are wealth mindset, they buy clothes that are comfortable. And it's like, why am I in slacks? Why am I in this t-shirt? Why am I in these shoes that aren't, flashy shoes? They're comfortable. I'm not buying them to impress you. And the funny part is, a lot of people that are in this game to impress, if you ask them the simple question, what do you like? Who are you? Those two questions. And you actually press them on it, not just let them get a pass. You actually say, why do you like it? Why do you like it? And usually they will not be able to tell you exactly why they like it. They'll say, well, because it's this, and they'll give you stats that are out and everybody else is saying. Like, no. why do you like it?
I'll give you an example. So back when I was in high school, no, I was in middle school. My mother lived in Long Beach,
Mhm.
and I grew up with my grandparents. So she called me and she said, "Hey, LJ, there's this church group that got this funding where they go on this weekly trip out to the I think it's the Redwoods in California."
Okay.
And so we went on this trip, and I was with all these kids, and I was wearing these Skechers because they was hiking shoes, hiking boots. They
Okay.
have Skechers on it, right? As we're on the bus, these kids started to try to punk me because I had Skechers on.
Hmm.
There's like, "Yo, look at this corny, get the Skechers on." And I'm like, I'm looking at them like, in my mind, I'm thinking they crazy because we're going hiking. Like, why would I wear my nice shoes, my nice Jordans, to go hiking and spend a week out in the woods?
Yeah.
So they got the Jordans on, and they were punking me on the ship, and I ended up having to deal with that when we got back. You know what I'm saying, later, because
Yeah.
I ain't no punk, but we got back. It was funny was because when we got off of there, they was trying to make fun of me. And I was like, man, y'all crazy. When we got on this night hike, when we came back and we got back into the cabins, those kids' short shoes was ruined.
Yeah.
I had some other shoes in my pack, but I had my Skechers on because I'm not gonna ruin my nice shoes. These are hiking shoes, right?
Yeah.
And I was laughing at them now because their shoes was all jacked up and muddied up. They had nothing else to wear, or they either just couldn't go on the fun stuff because they didn't want to mess their shoes up.
Oh yeah. Because they knew
Because
when they got home, that scuff is gonna get them pretty much yelled at. Be like, how you gonna mess up your good shoes?
right,
They were trying to
because
impress everybody
they
else.
were trying to impress everybody, and that's what happens when you start chasing validation, approval addiction. We have an addiction to approval of other people. I
Yeah.
have it. You have it. Everybody has that addiction, but just being aware of it, bringing awareness to it. Like, why am I doing the things I do? Who am I trying to impress?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
is
you'll
it?
start.
And you'll
Go
start
ahead.
seeing it. You'll start seeing. You'll start seeing it. You'll start seeing it. And that's the reason why I think I love podcasting and what we're doing, because it creates long form communication and you create connections, and we can unpack some of these ideas.
Yeah.
Right? I don't really see. I don't really see that in some of the other mediums that people use. No disrespect to other mediums, but I think here we can unpack some of these ideas.
Yeah. Because you're having a conversation.
Right.
Other things can be produced. And
Exactly.
so, you're only showing your best foot. You're not showing your truth. You got filters. You got all these things that can pretty much pretty up what's really
Right.
going on. Where a
Hmm.
podcast, you're having a conversation. It's in live. It's on the fly. You can't fake some of the stuff.
You can't. You
So
can't fake the. It's hard to fake the funk with it.
yeah, exactly.
I did want to
So
share with you some of the things about podcasts. You got any questions before we
that
crack
was,
into that?
that's exactly what I was about to jump into. I was like, so since we're talking about podcasting, you basically built your business and an empire, like you say, several businesses using podcasts as a medium. And I've
Yeah.
seen you podcast, with others and interview others. I've seen you also get people engaged with you and want to do business with you because of your podcast. So I want you to
Right.
talk a little bit about podcasting, what it is, and how you basically built around podcasting your different businesses.
Okay. So what it comes down to is I look at podcasting as a tool, and
Mhm.
every tool has a purpose. So whether or not it's podcasting, blogging, whatever your skill set is, singing, right? It has to be. You have to be talented at it. You have to build that talent, build that skill set. Not be talented, but build the skill set around it.
Okay.
And it's a tool. Now, the key thing with podcasting is messaging, and that has everything to do with marketing. Because I come from a financial services marketing company background, right?
Mhm.
And so the marketing, the messaging is probably the most important thing. But to get to that, you have to build that know, like, and trust factor. And
Okay.
and so I use the podcast as a way to get my message out to the right people. The right people. Not everybody needs to listen to my podcast. As a matter of fact, if everybody listens to your stuff, then nobody's listening to it. That's the reason why you have all this watered down music, all this stuff that's just, like that bop, da 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 da, bop. Like, what are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like that. That's like the precipice. I use that song as an analogy for the precipice of just putting out nothing, right?
What is it? I had
Like,
them with the ooh, with the ooh, and then the drive with the ooh. I'm like, they're not even saying anything. What are they saying?
right. And but with message, so that will get the masses really, because like you got to put a lot of behind that. But if you want to get to the right people, you got to work on your messaging. And podcasting is a great way for you to unpack ideas and flush out what your messaging is.
Okay.
So most of the time, people get the barrier that I see that I help people with is getting started with it, right? Because that barrier to entry is very low with podcasting. What it comes down to is that approval addiction, fear of rejection, the things we talked about earlier, right? You have these things you developed through time and through your business, through dealing with people, and you don't want to put yourself out there. People are afraid. That's what. And plus, with COVID, there was this huge agoraphobia where people didn't want to go out of their homes, right? They're afraid to leave their homes. So there's all this fear. So podcasting is a great way to overcome the fear of public speaking, because you're not having to speak in front of a huge audience and you get more comfortable. So I say, look, if you have a fear of talking and you want to be a public speaker, then podcasting is incredible because you can build that skill set. There's so many things you can learn from it that people don't really focus on. Like you learn about scheduling, booking appointments, how to get a presentation, how to stay engaging, right? All these things are being taught through the process of podcasting. And as a business owner, what I found is that when people talk about podcasting in the podcasting space, they're not, a lot of those guys are doing it for the love of the game and they're not business owners. So what happens is a lot of the information is more techie because it's driven by the producers, right? If you look at the podcasting space, the entrepreneur that has a podcast normally, like a Tony Robbins type figure, he's not producing the show. He's just the talent.
Yeah.
And the people that are doing the on Clubhouse that were doing a lot of the content for podcasting, I found it was boring to me because it was dealing with the tool and not what the tool does, right? How to create a podcast, what kind of mics you should use, all that stuff is irrelevant to me. How do you leverage this tool to sell to your clients and your target market? And so one of the things I started doing on Clubhouse is this 7-day podcast creation challenge with people. And I may go back to it just to kind of drum up some more momentum. But basically, I would give them tasks each day they can achieve on a 7-day cycle to get their podcast started. So if you like, I can kind of go over that with you real quick.
Yeah, sure.
So basically, day one would be planning, strategy, and schedule. Right. So one of the key things when it comes to implementing anything into your repertoire, into your marketing, into your routine, is having it on your schedule. So one of the things that I did is I scheduled Monday, Wednesday, and Friday where I would record my podcast, and I had set times that people can book me on Calendly. And what that did is it allowed me to be able to produce 6 to 8 episodes because I was doing on average about 6 a week. Which sounds like a lot. But when you think about it, I had it on a schedule for 45 minutes, 90 minutes a day. I'd record my podcast on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. By the end of the week, I'd have six episodes. And I was so well at that. I haven't produced a lot of content because I was putting out so much that I got people bugging me from months ago that haven't even published their shows yet. Because I got so much content I've been putting out, right? Of producing because of the schedule. Now, the strategy was this. If you mentioned earlier before we hopped on here that people needed to reschedule because of these live shows. So what I did is I would do my show based off of, so if they had to reschedule, I left Saturday mornings open for reschedules. So if I had a show scheduled and my audience was like, hey, listen, guys, we're not doing the podcast today because there was a reschedule, they knew that Saturdays was the rescheduled day. So even though my audience, so Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I had the shows. I typically at least one show a day, right? On those days, I'd hop on and just do the show in the morning, and then it would be up and running throughout the rest of the week, right? And then Saturdays I would reschedule with my guests. And so that schedule kind of gave me more clarity and gave me a structure on how to run the shows now. What that did also is that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I was able to take inbound calls, inbound leads from the shows that I was doing. So if the clients wanted to connect with me, hey, listen, if you're getting value out of the podcast, go to connect.ljhaywood.com, right? And that link would be open on the days that I was available to take in calls. Which was on Tuesdays and Thursdays. All right. Does that make sense? Yeah. So now the thing is, what I did also, so that'd be day one, like scheduling. So all that you can't do any of those things if it's not on your schedule. A lot of people want to do something like go to the gym, but they don't put it on their schedule. The easiest way to go to the gym is just to say gym morning, boom, it's done, right? And then the list of topics. So I recommend people before they try to get caught up with trying to create a title for their podcast. Well, I don't have a title yet. Who cares? Focus on the client. What information is valuable to your client, your target market?
Okay.
So I don't worry about the title. The title actually came last for my podcast. What came first was about 60 topics that would help my target market. Who's my target market? The messaging. Build a Bootcamp podcast is a podcast for, and this is a structured way of doing your target marketing, aspiring entrepreneurs who have a pain point, who are frustrated with their W-2 jobs, and they want to learn how to build and scale their own business.
Okay.
Simple. So it's a podcast for target market, whoever your target market is. It's a podcast for gardeners who are frustrated with not being able to get their plants to grow, get their tomatoes to grow real big. They want to learn how to be a better gardener or whatever the case may be, right? It could be whatever it is, but having that clear, concise. And I say that at the beginning of every show, because now if you share my show with somebody and they're not in my target market or they're not struggling with their business, they're not going to listen to it.
Okay. You can filter them out, qualify.
You can filter them out through the initial introduction of the show.
Okay.
And so that all started with list of topics, right?
Okay.
Figuring out what the content is. So like, for example, I have my phone right here, right? Sorry, interrupted. So I go to my phone, right? I can actually, and from that list of topics, I started with about 60 lists of topics. I can go in here and pull up topics. Let's see, podcast topics. I'll give you an example. And as you can see, I'm gonna scroll through here. So these are some of the topics that I came up with. Changing your paradigm in 2021, abundance versus scarcity mentality, your journey as an entrepreneur, being a creator versus a consumer, overcoming roadblocks in business, stay busy, don't be idle, the power of being present, the power of action, so on and so forth, right? And so the reason why this is important is because if you don't have the right content for the right people, then they're not going to listen, right? So that's why it's very important to me to make sure I started with the list of topics. Now that I got the list of topics, I'll go back to my other deal here. All right, podcast. Guests. All right. So now I got creating a booking link. So now you got your list of topics. Guest list. Guest list. You got your list of topics. Who are the correct people that should be on your show as guests? Okay. What would an aspiring entrepreneur, who do they want to listen to? Who do they want to hear from? Well, it's from entrepreneurs, right? People that are already running businesses. And that could be, that gives me I can run the gambit with that. Okay. Because the way I run my show is you don't have to be Tony Robbins. You could be Tony Brown, right? A gentleman that just started his own flooring company, right? I'll have you on the show because now the goal is to inspire people to start their own businesses. And if you just started your own company, why not have you on the show, right? Yeah. So I can have that. And what that has done is because I work in financial services, I've found a couple of things. And we'll go into the booking link in a second. Is that my audience aren't in my target market typically for my financial products, but my guests are. Okay. My guests are entrepreneurs. I work in the insurance business, in life insurance business. Most entrepreneurs don't have life insurance. Okay. So my target market that's my target market, right? They're probably making over 100,000 a year plus. They have residual income because they're investing in their business, and they have nowhere to put it.
So let me rewind for those that might not have got it.
I'm going a little too fast. Sorry.
So what he just did was he found topics that were interesting to the audience. He found guests that could speak toward those topics, but also the guest is actually his target market because they are qualified for what he offers in one of his businesses. So as he's interviewing them, he's building rapport with them. They're getting to know him, they're getting to like him, and they're getting to trust him. So now afterwards, if they're having conversations and let's say life insurance comes up, they're like,
If
well,
appropriate, yeah.
yeah, you offer life insurance, or what should I do, for my legacy? I have a family
Right.
and so forth. Well, do you have life insurance? Have you built
I
up?
I actually I want to share this because this is very important.
Mhm.
So the conversation is very simple. So I say, hey, listen, Jeff, I do a follow up interview with my
Mhm.
guests, and this is only if it's appropriate, right? Because while I'm doing the show, I'm pre-qualifying them beforehand. I'm not
Okay.
calling every guest offering insurance products because I'm very specific on the market that I want to work with,
Yeah.
right? So they may not be there, but I'll say, hey, listen, Jeff, listen, I wanted to call you. First of all, I want to thank you. And this after I've been sending you things like, hey, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate you. Let's work on future projects. Once we built that rapport, I say, hey, listen, Jeff, it's LJ. I'd like to schedule a call with you to kind of follow about the interview. Are you available? Yes. And this is the close right here, guys. So you say, hey, Jeff, it's LJ. Listen, first of all, I want to thank you again for being on the show. And could you give me any feedback? Were there anything that we didn't go over in the show that you would like to go over maybe on our next episode? Because I always want to I want to book a meeting from a meeting. So I'll say
Okay.
our next episode, because you want to have repeat guests on your show. Because
Okay.
that way you're not having to chase down guests all the time. I see
Yeah.
people in podcasting. The biggest mistake is thinking you have to keep getting new guests. What you do is you get guests and you get them to come back. That's the goal
Okay.
for me, right? Because
Okay.
you're building that consistency. And what I'm actually for my podcast, I'm
Mhm.
going to transition into having contributors on the show. So I want to
Okay.
have guest features that come on and run the show for me as contributors, because they may not have
Okay.
their own show yet, but they can come on my show and do a segment. Pretty cool, right? So I can start leveraging out episodes, and that'll help with the content. But that's another little
Yeah.
secret sauce.
And it frees up a little bit of your time, so you don't have to be
Bingo.
locked
Because
down.
not everyone wants to start their own podcast, but they can leverage my platform. All right. So the conversation goes, hey, listen, Jeff, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I actually work in the financial industry. And I was wondering, are you locked into what you're currently doing right now financially, or are you open to suggestions? And again, this is after we've done the podcast, we've been connecting. What would
Yeah.
your answer to that be, Jay? Like, are you open to suggestions?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
All right. Well, listen, if we were to get together and kind of discuss it further, because I'm actually in a hurry right now, would this week or next week be better for you to kind of schedule the time to kind of go over more detail? And just so you know, our company helps our clients reduce taxes, free up money to save, and also increase their current investments if they have anything in place to begin with, right? So
Yeah.
if you're interested, yeah, if that's something you're interested in, would this week or next week be better for you?
Okay. And then you'd be like next week. You'd probably
Okay,
be like
and then
next week because the time and
okay, great. Well, if next week is the beginning of the week, or is later in the week better for you? And I just close the
beginning of the
appointment,
week. Yeah. Beginning
right?
of the week.
And then I just close that appointment. So most of the times,
Hmm.
that same conversation,
Hmm.
I run it like this though. I say, well, I'd love to get you on the calendar of one of my business partners. I work with an agency.
Okay.
That right there is what frees my time up. So I just closed an account. I was on the phone before we hopped on this call, right? So with that business, I said, I have inbound leads coming in. I said, hey, listen, I helped her with her business. Because here's the thing about it, right? Your business strategy shouldn't just be to continue to hit the grindstone. You got to start investing some of this money you're making. What are you doing with the money you're making in your business? That's
Yeah.
part of your strategy. So when I say I help people with business strategy, the financial side of it is part of that. I'm going to
Okay.
help you make more money in your business by helping you podcast, but the money you're making, what are you doing with it? Is it only going back into your business? Do you have an emergency fund? Do you have a retirement plan? What are your goals? Do you have protections for your family? All these things should be part of your legacy plan, your strategy. And
Okay.
so when I had that conversation, that follow-up conversation, I say, hey, well, listen, Jeff, I would love for you to sit down with one of my business partners, Majida Bay. She's been in the industry for 12 years. She's very highly knowledgeable, and I've learned a
Hmm.
lot from her. I edify her, and I say, here's her link. Here's a link to schedule on her calendar. I
Okay.
do that, so now I don't have to worry about, because she's really good. I'm really good at. There's two parts of business. There's attention, which is marketing,
Yeah.
and there's conversion, which is closing accounts. I
Yeah.
focus on marketing, and I find other people that are really good at converting leads. I
Okay.
don't just send my leads. I don't just send my pre-qualified people from doing all that work to just anybody.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I don't even send them to myself, because I'm so damn busy, I don't have time to close those leads and convert those leads.
Yeah.
So I work with people, I work with a team that they close those leads for me. That's why when people ask me, like, so what do you sell? It depends. It
Yeah.
depends. So on the back end is where I get the money.
Okay. Yeah. And
Does that make sense?
and it's great that you said that. I like to make a point on that. That's why it's called sales and marketing. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that there is a difference. There's sales and there's marketing. And, when I used to work for corporate, they would have your marketing department, and your job is to get them to the door. Your job is to generate the leads. It's not to have the sales. If the sales don't come through, that's the sales department's issue. The sales department issue is to close them. They don't really worry about generating leads. That's the marketing department's issue. And a lot of times we try to lump it into one thing, that is sales and marketing is all the same thing, and it's not. It's
not
totally
at all.
different. Yeah.
Not
totally
at all. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And when you have a team, you got to figure out what your role is on the team. You got a you got a quarterback, and you got a receiver.
Yeah.
Right. I look at myself as a quarterback. I'm tossing a rock. I need you to be there to catch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And the thing about my team is that because they're not worried about the marketing side of things, their calendar is freed up to then really take really good care of that client. I say an analogy. I say, my fiance is a cook in the Navy. She's a chef. And when she gets out, she's going to be getting her degree in culinary arts. Well, she already has a degree in culinary arts, but follow on with that, right? I say, if we opened a restaurant, you'd want LJ to be your host. And maybe even your waiter, depending on the situation. Maybe not the waiter, but the host, at least the host of the event, right?
Okay.
Master of ceremonies. But you would not want LJ cooking your food. It's the same thing in your business.
Yeah.
And people, that's why when you start looking at these systems, the processes, the next time, anyone listen to this, the next time you go into a restaurant, look at how you're passed off.
Yeah.
From the host.
The person that hosts does not actually take your food order. And, the person that takes your food order doesn't go back to the back and start cooking it. Yeah, you're right. It's a
so
system.
What is that? Exactly. So look at the processes in your business and see, why are you hosting, taking the order, cooking the food, delivering the food, calling them up? You're doing everything.
Yeah, you're right.
Doing everything.
You're right.
That's
and
crazy.
Then you end up getting burned out, because you're doing so much. You're juggling too many balls in the air, too many tasks that you're doing to be good. I tell people this: do you want to be a specialist or a handyman? When you call somebody to repair your home, do you want a plumber or a handyman? And there's a difference. Not saying that a handyman can't do your plumbing, but they do so many things. Plumbing might not be their specialty.
I'll give you an example. I was just troubleshooting an aircraft because I work in the Air Force right now. I'm on reserve orders, active duty orders as a reservist. And we had a jet come down. And as a specialist, our job is to troubleshoot. All right. It's not to turn wrenches. That's the easy part. That's really the easy part.
Yeah.
So we had a jet that was down for a couple of days, but because you're a specialist, you spend more time on the computer looking for, all right, could it be this? All right, let's check that. All right, could it be this? All right, let's check that.
Yeah.
Let's open this up. The turning the wrenches, that's the easy part. And we have guys that have been doing this job here for maybe a year while I'm a reservist. But because I know I specialize in troubleshooting, not turning wrenches, I didn't touch the wrench the whole time I was up there. I got trainees for that.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're still learning how to turn the wrenches. Yeah. I'm learning how to fix the whole jet. I get paid you know what I'm saying? You get paid you get paid more because you understand the process.
Yeah. 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 And that makes sense. And it's all about processes. Processes equals profits. I mean, exactly. When it comes down to it, if you want to scale your business, you have to have processes.
And speaking of which, looking at what we've been talking about, or the guests, so you got the right people on your podcast. The next step is process. Creating a booking link. I'll give you an example. I've been coaching somebody for like the last month. Still hasn't done it. Won't create the booking link. And because of that, I can't send him leads. Because I'm a marketer. I know that. I'm a straight up marketer. Yeah. So if you got a product or service, I can market it. But if you don't have the processes in place, I'm not even going to send you the leads. I refuse to, because I lose credibility. So when you look at your business, you could pull all these people in through your podcast and all that stuff. But if you don't have a simple, Calendly is perfect. If you look up calendly.com, it's CALENDLY. That's Calendly, like calendar with LY.
Yeah.
That link is what it does is when you're pulling in these leads, people book their own appointments. So as an entrepreneur, you beat the market by lowering the overall cost of getting new leads. So if, for example, Jeff and I are in the financial industry and he has to hire a VA to process all of his leads while I'm using a free automated service, I'm already beating him financially. The cost per lead is already a lot cheaper for me because I'm not having to pay for somebody to process that lead for me.
Let me give you the alley-oop, LJ. So here's how that works. So LJ has a booking link. I actually do it the old school way with a VA or myself manually. You want to book an appointment. LJ sends you a link. You look, see what times are available, what's convenient for you. You select it, you put in your name, your email, you're done. Me, I say, well, let me look at my calendar. I then say, I'm available this day, this day, this day. Well, what times? Well, I'm available 2 o'clock on Tuesday, 5 o'clock on Wednesday, and between noon and 2 on Thursday. What works for you? Now you got to look at your calendar. Well, none of those times work for me. What do you have on Friday? Now I got to look at my calendar. Well, Friday, maybe 3 o'clock. What does that say? See what I'm saying? And now you're irritated. Yeah, you're irritated. You're like, look, man, just get me in sometime. So he makes it convenient for you. And all you have to do is click a link, select the time. And that's it. And it syncs up with his calendar. So you know when he has availability.
And it sends reminders automatically. Matter of fact, while I was on the call before we hopped on here, the young lady was booking the appointment. She was so excited to work with me and my team. She was booking the appointment as we were talking. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the power of it, because you don't have to do, all I did was send the link. But this is the thing, you have to create it. That's the thing. If you put it off, you're leaving money on the table, a lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
Because with these links now, and this is well, we'll get into that in a second, right? So remember that, hold that thought. And the last thing is making discovery calls. So when you're doing your podcast, because we're talking about podcasts, and now all these processes still work in business. People look at the podcast like all this I'm teaching everybody, you could apply to your business. It's so funny, right? Because booking people for your podcast, like booking people for your business, right? Same thing, right? Anyhow, so use it as a way to kind of make those processes easier. And it's also less of a sales pitch too, because getting people booked on a podcast is a lot easier than booking them for an appointment for your business. So building that process up through the podcast and then applying it to your business, you might write that one down. But anyways, discovery calls. So you've already got the booking link. You've already got people that you want to have on your show.
Mm-hmm.
This is when you start sending the link out. Hey, listen, Jeff, I just started this podcast. I'd love to have you on the show. Are you available? Yeah, I'm available. All right, here's the link. Boom. Yeah. Damn. Okay. Wow. Damn, LJ. Okay. All right, man. You want to hear people say stuff like, wow, that was simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was easy.
You want to make it convenient. I tell people all day, people don't go to fast food because the food's good. It's just convenient. It's convenient. And you know the food, but I mean, I used to go to fast food and eat, and the minute I took the first 2 bites, I regretted it. And I was like, this is not good. But I did it every day because it was convenient.
Matter of fact, speaking of fast food, let me share. We'll go quick tangent since so what I did, right? Because I'm living in a hotel for like 3 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know that you're gonna be possibly eating a lot of fast food. So one of the things that I did is I ordered from a website, and this is not a sponsor or anything. It's called Freshly's, and what they do is they have pre-made food that's not frozen. It's made by a chef, and then they vacuum seal it. They don't freeze it, and then they ship it to you on a weekly basis. And so what that does for me.
Same thing with Home Chef. Yeah.
Oh, I gotta look at. Okay, so is it pre-made though? Same thing.
Yep. And
all right, I might have to order them as well.
Well, with Home Chef, the only difference is
you got to prepare.
They have some that's pre-made and some that you actually have to, chop things up.
That's what
So
I wanted. Yeah, I couldn't do
yeah.
that. Yeah, I couldn't do
Now,
that. I
but
couldn't do that. 'Cause I'm
you
like,
can have it either way. They have two different menus, so you can get it to where it's in a container and you just pop it in the
mhm,
oven and go. And then they have
mhm.
others where you prepare it yourself. I get the ones that I prepare because it gives me quality time with the little one, and we basically cook together. But
That's
the
beautiful,
other
man.
one's quick to pop in, just pop in. Yeah,
Well, yeah, I did that to save time because time is important. So when I go to work, I'm not wasting time like going back and forth with the food situation, right? Let me
yeah.
look at my calendar real quick. I want to make sure that I didn't have anything scheduled for. All right, let me see. All right, we're all set. All right, cool. My next meeting
Okay.
until 2:30 my time. So here's the thing, dude. So I want to share this with you, right? Pull this up. All right, because I want to get back to that Calendly situation, right? So yeah. Once you make the discovery calls, you're just seeing if they're a good fit. You send them a link, they're gonna book it, and then that you can record it the next day. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, hey, look,
yeah.
I got some time available tomorrow or the next day or next week or whatever, and they can
Mhm.
book it, and then you edit and publish. Now, all that's fun and dandy, but you're gonna have to sit down with somebody to teach you about, like, yeah. Honestly, if you look at Pat Flynn on YouTube,
Yeah.
he
Oh yeah.
teaches you how to get all the processes, and you look up Pat Flynn, start a podcast. That'll set you on track on as far as the tools and equipment. What we're
Yeah.
focusing on is the processes and procedures and getting it done.
Yeah, yeah. Pat Flynn
Yeah.
has Entrepreneur on Fire. So if you do it, even simpler, EOF, EOF.com. So yeah, Pat Flynn does it. Now you talked about getting them on the podcast, but you
Mhm.
have a gift. You are gifted with the gift of gab. But for those that may be introverts and so forth, how do you structure your actual podcast when you're doing the podcast itself?
Great question. So most of my gifts are really just skill sets I've developed. When I was in high school, I used to do like play production and theater.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to have is a structure, right? So if you are introverted, the way I do an interview is it gets because this is going to get more granular as we go, right? So you got a 45-minute. I recommend 45 minutes for any conversation. That way you can go a little bit shorter, you can go a little bit longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
On your end, when you book a 45-minute conversation, book it for an hour on your end as the podcastie,
Yeah.
as the entrepreneur, right? If you have a guest coming to your office, you book it for 45, you schedule it for an hour just in case, give you some
Mm-hmm.
grace period, right? And I've learned that through process. You don't want to be back to back with guests. So what I do is I have a 45-minute and I put a buffer on the back end for 15 minutes for my next show or whatever I got scheduled next.
Okay.
But anyhow, to answer your question, is past, present, future is the process that I use in my podcast.
Okay.
If you remember that past, present, future. So the first 15 minutes is talking about their past, getting to
Okay.
know them, their history, their backstory. That's
Mm-hmm.
simple. Hey man, and that's so easy. Hey man, so tell me a little bit about where you grew up at. Even as an introvert, if all you do is ask a lot of questions,
Yeah.
you don't have to talk a lot,
Yeah.
right? So an interview style show is perfect for an introvert. Hey, listen, welcome to the show. I'm here with Jeff. And before we get started, Jeff, I'd like to ask you, so tell me a little bit about where you grew up at.
Yeah.
What that does is it does what's it gets person thinking about their past, so they're automatically going to be in a good mood, talk about themselves and where they grew up at most of
Mm-hmm.
the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? I grew up in LA, this and that, and just listen. Um, if you're more like me and you're more extroverted, this is going to be tough for you. So when you ask that question, you're going to want to interrupt. So
Mm-hmm.
what you want to do instead of interrupting is just repeat what they say. So they say, "Yeah, I grew up in LA." Wow, LA. Yeah, in LA, back in the 70s or the 80s when we was kids, we did this and this. Man, we used to dance. I was a break dancer. Wow, he was a break dancer. Wow, that's crazy, right? I just repeat what they say, all
Yeah.
right? And what that does is it's called mirroring, right? It shows one that you're listening, and two, it gets them to elaborate, so you don't have to really worry about carrying the conversation as much. Okay,
Okay.
and so that's one thing. So their past. Then you want to talk about present. You talk about a little bit how you grew up. So
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that you're doing currently in your business, right? And you talk about that, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
very simple. Like there's other processes we can go for more, and then from there, future. So as you're having that conversation about what they're currently working on, some of their struggles. So what are some of your struggles in business? Past, present, and then the future. So yeah, we listen, Jeff. So and I always say this in my podcast, you'll hear it a lot. You'll hear me say, so as we wind down, or as we're wrapping up, And that might even be in the next 15 minutes, right? Who knows, right? But I'll
Mm-hmm.
say that about at the 30-minute mark. I'll say, so listen, just as we're wrapping up, what are some of the things you guys got planned for the future? Like, what are some projects, events you're working on that you could point our audience to? Well, actually, good question, LJ. Most guests are going to love that question because they're going to come on your show and they're going to love you. And so they're going to
Mm-hmm.
want to talk to you. And they're going to forget that they're there to promote an event or their business, right? So then that past, present, future is what all you're doing is you're creating an opportunity for your audience to get to know your guests past, to have vested interest in their past,
Okay.
learn what they're currently working on, and then be aware of what your guest is working on in the future.
Okay. Okay. Great structure. Great structure. So
Thanks. And we can get more granular, like basically, but that's the simple framework. And what you can do is you can base that off of, you gotta be very cognizant of time. So if you got a 15-minute interview, 5 right?
okay.
And same thing with a 20-minute or a 30-minute or whatever. Like you want to break it up in those chunks of 3 throughout the interview. And that
Okay.
way, starting with somebody's past though is really, really key because you're already getting to tell stories, and stories sell, and facts just don't. They don't. Yeah, facts don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Fact, we've seen plenty of times when people say, well, fact check this, fact check that, that never turns over too well. So
Yeah. Well, be legit. Like have the facts. Lead with the stories and then end with the facts.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? You wouldn't want somebody to come on your show and just immediately start talking about their business or what they're promoting. I wouldn't want to do that. You could do that, but I wouldn't do
Yeah.
that.
No. I mean, people love story, the art of storytelling. So people do love stories. Last night I actually was on I got on a YouTube binge because this guy Smoothie,
Mm-hmm.
little one was watching it, and I was watching her watch it, and then I started watching it. And next, an hour later, because he has a great way of telling stories in these little animations he does, and
That's cool.
so people get caught up in stories. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
important. So I'm gonna take a
Yeah.
page out of your book as we're wrapping up, because we do have an hour time. So we are coming up on the last 5 minutes. I
Okay.
want people to know how they can basically know what you're doing next and how they can get involved in the boot camp.
All right. So this is what I recommend. If you are interested in working with me, just go on Instagram at LJ Haywood COM. My website is ljhaywood.com. And I couldn't get .com on Instagram, so I couldn't get at ljhaywood.com, which I understand why. So it's at LJ Haywood COM on Instagram. And just DM me the word strategy to schedule your free strategy session with me. We'll go over your business. Let me pull up my notes real quick. 1 second. Yeah. So basically, if you're a serious entrepreneur and you want to become highly skilled at connecting and doing more business with the right people, listen to Build a Bootcamp. That's definitely my first recommendation. That's free content. All the information I'd give to you as a client, I try to give you as much information as I can on the podcast. But if you want to work with me, I help entrepreneurs get clarity on their business strategy. And we're talking about social media marketing, messaging, target marketing, branding, personal branding, et cetera, along with a clear roadmap towards implementation. So at whatever level you need that kind of help, I will help you. So with the podcast, if you schedule that free strategy session with me, I will give you as much information as I can in that 30 minutes, and then we can build a relationship from there. So yeah, just just email me the word strategy, DM me strategy on Instagram, or you can go to strategy.ljhaywood.com and we can set up a time to do that. And yeah, I hope is that helpful for your audience?
Definitely. And you can, if you're on Clubhouse, look up LJ Haywood.
That's it.
And join some of his rooms. He has them on a regular basis, and he provides a lot of information in those Clubhouse rooms as well. So, if you just want to be a fly on the wall first, you can go to Clubhouse. And if you want to actually ask questions, that's a great place as well to just get in there, get in the conversation. And once you start building that, then once you feel comfortable, go ahead and book that strategy call. So that is it. And I appreciate, LJ, you coming on. And this is one of many times we'll have you on to talk about, just building businesses and how it works. I know you over there having a fun time in another land, in a strange land, doing things. But
no, I'm actually in Delaware. So what happened was the military is overseas, and as a reservist, I'm filling in for the active duty component that are deployed.
oh,
Does that
cool.
make sense? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I'm still stateside, but I'm just filling in for the active duty as they're deployed. They need bodies to come in and fill us positions.
cool. Delaware. Yeah, yeah, great state. And you where you came from. I came from Virginia, so moved down here to Atlanta. So you're stationed,
Yeah.
right? Or your home place now, not where you're birthed
Mm-hmm.
from, but your home place now is in Virginia.
Virginia
So
Beach, man. Yeah, I love it down there. I'm actually planning on going back home next weekend. Just check on my car, check on some things. And yeah, man, I love it in Virginia. I love it down there.
cool. Yeah, I moved from that area. So if you say Denby and Jefferson, that's where my old house used to be. So
Wow, I gotta check
I,
that. That's crazy.
yeah, I was there for a long time. I'm
Well, we
from
need to
Virginia
connect.
too.
We need to connect in person, man. You say you're out in Atlanta?
Definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm here in Atlanta. I've been here since 2001. So
I may be able to take some leave, take some time off. They're encouraging me to take some time off pretty soon. So we'll
cool.
see.
Yeah, definitely, man.
I
If you
might go on a
in
road trip.
town. Yeah, definitely show you around the A. I mean,
But
and
before
I
we wrap up, man, I want to say though, I appreciate you. I appreciate all the support. Um, I think that what you're doing is incredible for people, and I think that one of the major things that I love about you is your attitude, man. You always got a positive attitude whenever you come into the rooms, and when we're connected on Clubhouse or wherever we connect at. So if there's anybody on the fence that wants to do business with you or wants to work with you, they got to get off that fence and just move into that relationship, because I think that it would be beneficial for them.
thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, we have great synergy, especially when we up there. And as you can see from the listeners and viewers, we love to talk, we love to share. So, it would be to your advantage to go ahead and get in that conversation because you're going to get a
Yeah,
wealth of knowledge. So
absolutely.
cool. Well, everybody, thank you for looking on the show and listening to the show. And, this is the marketing strategy session. If you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and put it in the comments. Or if you want to say, I want LJ back and we want to talk about this topic, also DM us, let us know. We'll have him back on the show to talk about that topic because he has a wealth of knowledge. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.